Today we're going to explore some of the basic features of SolidWorks. That is, the tools that make features like holes and cuts and bosses, patterns, ribs, etc. All of these different things up here. We've got extruded boss base and then all the rest of this list. We won't be able to explore them all in this short time, but I want to just sort of build a part from scratch that will bring up quite a few of these so that we can see how they work in combination. So I'm going to start a sketch on the front plane, and I'm just going to start with a line, and I'm just doodling out kind of the shape that I have in mind, and I do have a kind of a particular part that I have in my mind, so I'm just kind of drawing the outline of it. Not that exciting to watch, I'm sure. Need some of these lines controlled. That guy should be horizontal, and I want these two to be parallel. Before I do that, I think I'll put a dimension on there for angle so I get exactly the angle I want, 45 degrees. Make that one parallel to that. And the part actually is kind of starting to take shape. It's a little squatty or shorter than I had in mind here. I'm not going to worry too much about its exact dimensions in this case. I'll add some if I need some, but right now I'm mainly just looking for the shape. So that's basically it. Now I'm going to take that shape and extrude it. So that's our first feature, extrude boss base. And I'm going to extrude him so he's 3.5 inches across. Now the next phase of this is I'd kind of like, what I'm going to have is a rounded tip on this guy, and I'm going to end up with a couple of raised bosses on this guy and a few slots and cutouts and holes and other kinds of features. It'll give us a chance to kind of practice sort of the basic features. So first thing I'm going to do is round this off, and a great way to round something off so that it is full tangent is to go ahead and use the fillet command and set it to full round fillet. A lot of people know about all of the basic fillet commands and they go out and fillet things sort of manually, but this is a great one for just rounding off an end so that it matches the tangent of the width. So all it takes is you pick the first box, pick a side, pick the next box down, pick the next side, pick the next box, and you can probably guess, flip over the other side, grab the next one. And now you can see in the preview that it's going to give us a nice rounded end. This width could be whatever you want it to be, and it's going to match that radius with a tangent. So that's pretty much what I had in mind. Now that I actually see it trimmed it off, though, I want that a little longer. So I'm going back to the original sketch, edit that, look straight at it, and just stretch that guy out a little bit. That might be a little extreme. How about that? Okay. And it adjusts with it because it's radiusing the end. Wherever the end ended up being, that was the 3 sides we grabbed. So next thing I want to do is build a couple of bosses back here. They're going to be kind of this raised boss platform with a rounded top on it, which is hard to describe until we just model it. So I'm going to use a similar technique. I'm going to build a basic box, a cube, on this surface. And I'm going to extrude that. I'm not worried too much about locations and things right now, just so we can kind of get through the basic operations. That's a little taller than I have in mind. I'm kind of thinking something like that. So once I've got that built, I can do a similar process as I did here, basically the same process. Just go to the fillet command. It's still set to full round fillet because that's the last kind we did. Pick a side, which is this one. Pick another side, this one. Pick the last side, this one over here. Okay, that's what I want. So I check and say OK. Now, the way this particular design works, it actually ends up being kind of two separate bosses with a cutout in between. So I'm going to put a sketch on this surface, rectangle, and I'm just eyeballing about where I want that to be. I can dimension these things later or as I go if I have the numbers. I'm going to turn that so I kind of look, yeah, that looks pretty good. Go to the features. Now we're going to extruded cut. We're extruding, but it's not going to be a solid, it's a cut. So we extrude a cut, and we want it to go through the whole thing. So I'm going to switch this from blind to through all. Now it's really actually important that you think about whether you want to do that. If I leave it at blind, which is the default, then it stops at whatever depth this is set to, and you can set it to whatever number you want or leave it to what they've got. In my case, it does go all the way through that little humped piece there, but what if in the future this piece down here, this boss, gets enlarged, or the whole part gets enlarged, and now this thing is 3 times as wide? Well, now my depth of cut will stop where it's still stopping now, so it won't really go all the way through. I'm just going to assume that for future design modification and you know, kind of future process and use of this part, that it will need to cut all the way across. So to do that, just switch over to through all. It doesn't necessarily make any difference how long this is now. Whatever width this is, the cut is going to go through all. So I'll accept that, and now we see the notches cut out of there, or the notch cut out of there. Okay. Next, I'm going to put a counterbore hole in this location here. Next, I'm going to put a sketch on that surface, go to circle. I'll touch this outside arc so that the center lights up. Go out there and grab a hold of that point. And I'm going to doodle the small diameter hole. I'm not, again, worrying about sizes on this one. I can change them later. And I want to do a feature, another extruded cut. Now this time if I said through all, that thing would go through all, right through the whole part. I don't want that. So I'm going to switch it to up to next. So in this box here for direction, to next. And then just accept it. And now we have the small hole. This is supposed to be a counterbore hole. So I'll start a sketch on that same plane. Go to circle, touch that, grab its center. Whatever the diameter of the counterbore is supposed to be. Features, extruded cut. Now because it's a counterbore, we don't want it going through. We want it to go whatever depth it needs to go. I'm eyeballing that, and we'll take it. Now we have a counterbore hole there. I want to put some slots in here. There's kind of a straight slot here and more of a tapered wall slot here. So I'll do the easy sort of straight one first. I'll start a sketch on this plane. Start with a rectangle. And I'm going to look straight at it so I can get the proportion idea. That is, I want to see it in relation to the hole. So in order to see the hole, I'll switch up here to display style and go down to hidden. Now I can see where that hole is. Remember, it was eyeballed, so I am kind of eyeballing this rectangle as well. I'm just going to go in there and make a groove that goes part way through all of this. A slot. Let's tip that so we can see it. I'll switch it back to shade mode there you can really see it on, and we'll go to features, extruded cut, and you can probably guess ahead of me the next thing I would do is go to through all. Then no matter what happens with this length, it will cut through all. Accept that cut. Okay, looking pretty good. We're getting some details to this simple object. Next thing is I want to put a sketch on this surface to start this other groove, this other slot. I won't go rectangle this time. I'll go to a straight line. I'll look straight at it. And I'm going to turn on hidden lines again so that I can see proportionally where I am. And I'm just going to touch this outside, give it this angled depth that I have in mind. It's just eyeballing proportionally. Go ahead and close that up. And then let's just look at that and see, is it kind of what I have in mind? Yeah, it's this open groove with slanted rails on the side. I'm going to look at it straight on again so I can get the angles a little better. I'm going to actually dimension the angle. This is the one that's looking a little closer to what I have in mind. So let's see, that's, boy, actually that's pretty darn close. 45 degrees will work. And so now I want to make this other one 45 degrees as well. Just remember to grab, whatever you're dimensioning from off of the same locations. In other words, move this guy around until you see the 45 that you're looking for. Okay? Or whatever number that it is. Okay, he's ready to cut. So features, extruded cut. We want to go through all. And now we've got that notch cut in there. So next thing I want to do is punch a hole through these guys. So if I grab a hold of that surface, put a sketch on him, go to circle, go and light up that center point feature. There's my hole to go through, features, extruded cut. This time I'll go up to surface instead of up to next, which would stop here. Through all would go through everything. I'm going to go and grab up to surface and tell it to punch the hole up to this surface. Say OK.